Hi everybody, I'm back. I just have so many thoughts running through my mind here lately that I felt I just have to speak to you all about it in hopes that I can recall, because I did not take notes this time, all the things that I really want to share with you today. As you can see here, I am back here at Piedmont Park. I don't know what's going to come out or how it's going to come out, so I'm just going to go with it. That's the idea of impromptu. I just want to recall back over the many years when I moved to Atlanta. When we were young, we were told that Atlanta was a black mecca. And while this park at that time had a not so pleasing reputation, it was known supposedly as a gay park. And now you can clearly see that it has changed so much throughout the years. Behind me there is a dog park where people bring their dogs, and dogs get to socialize and run about and have fun. Well, back in the day, this area was called the Trails. And I was warned very early on about not going into that area. One of the first guys that I met, and I remember it was around January, the Martin Luther King Day marches and celebrations that were very popular back here during that time. He said, don't go down in that area. A gay guy whose family was not aware of his sexuality went down there seeking some sort of weird outdoor experience that some people get into. And again, this is not a judgment, but that person met someone down there, as I recall, and ended up murdered. And that's the way his family found out that he was even gay. And so, of course, I was terrified by that. I never really wanted to have any weird kind of sexual experiences, I have to admit. But throughout the years, this entire area used to be a parking lot. That area over there that's not now a parking lot, on every Sunday or the weekends, people would drive down through here, and there would be so many beautiful black gay men who we got to socialize with each other. Now, when you move from a small town where you have lived an entire life of hiding who you are, of living in fear, when you move to Atlanta, or when I moved to Atlanta back then, it felt so freeing to see other educated black men, to see people who had jobs, who had goals and aspirations, and it was very exciting. So we would come out here on a Sunday, usually. People resting up before going back to work on Monday, and socialize, park our car over here, and then just talk to people and meet people. And it was very exciting. And that was, what, 1987, I believe it was, when I moved here. And now here it is, 2018, and the entire area over here has changed. Now, many years prior to that, I was out here a lot. Whether I lived in the area or not, I ended up out here. And I ended up playing tennis at the tennis center right up there. So I parked over here a lot. I played lots of tennis over here, met a lot of people over here. And it just holds so much memory for me. I just did a very important presentation I'm excited about today because an idea came to mind for my next song. And it's going to be about death. But before I get to that, I was at Whole Foods. I took my laptop this time, like I often did during school assignments, just to get out of the house, to be around what at that time were conscious black people from all over the world. But now even that area has changed. You see lots of Africans, people from Somalia, Ethiopia, or wherever. And I don't know how they've been conditioned to think of black people in our country. Bobby Hemming has clearly taught us that much image tearing down of black people has been done through movies that they see, and they think that's how all black people are here. And so people aren't friendly. You know, they may be polite because they're doing a job, but it's very difficult to seemingly connect with people. And so, but, you know, here again, Kundalini is forcing nutritional change. I am eating very little meat. I am really beginning to see the importance of not eating anything that is dead. But I did have a little bit of piece of fish and then several chunks of watermelon and just a little bit of water. Wondering if I needed to get to the bathroom because I have to go so many times during the day. I don't want to be sitting here in extreme discomfort. But I made a mistake. I thought that since this problem in my rectal area that has been diagnosed as acute hidradenitis suppurativa, which he said is a pimple, that area swelling and changing and moving and hurting. I had an awful idea that you should never try. I inserted hydrogen peroxide up into that area, and for 4 or 5 days I was in sheer hell. And I'm just now healing from all of that. And deciding, you know, I'm not putting anything up my rectal area, which I never did sexually, and only applying maybe some coconut. I have been to the bathroom more times than I care to even talk about. But again, dealing what I believe is an entity attachment has been a nightmare. And that has caused me to contemplate all the time about death. Now, I want to remind you about tweaks in consciousness expansion that happen when you become awakened. Mine, again, happened in 1996 or 98. And all the research I did trying to figure out what was that Kundalini awakening experience. And then finally seeing that word Kundalini, at that time thinking that, you know, of course something amazing has happened, even though my life is falling apart, but it has a purpose. And then later, many years later, learning about Mama Nebthet, who was there from day one in raven form, and later in butterfly and ladybug form. Incidentally, just yesterday, I was listening to my musical there in my study, and the song came on, We Love You, Mama Nebthet, and then a ladybug flew in and landed on the window. And then later that day, I was speaking with my mother and complaining about everything and all the new realizations that I'm having. And she's looking out the front of, sitting where she sits in her home, looking out the front door, and she said, guess who's here now? And it was that black cat, which used to cross my path all the time when I lived down there and would occasionally leave home. A black cat would always cross my path. Well, I later realized that that was Bast. Bast is on my altar. Nebthet is on my altar. All of the Cometan Pantheon entities, I believe, are among and around us in many ways. All the dragonflies that are symbolizing breaking down illusion, and thus coming to this conclusion that I'm about to share with you right now. I believe that whatever decision that was made on a soul contractual level when they decided to disperse souls to this dimension, it had a purpose. And that purpose is to discover the horrors of living in this illusion, particularly understanding the mythology and the writing out of the Divine Mother, but how her wise decision to place energy in us that would gain and grow, and then we will come into consciousness, and through her guidance and with her protection, we will come to the realization that death to this nightmare illusion is good. And so I'm finally at the point where all the self-healing and all those things that I learned, all the manner of atrocities that have been exposed with the chakra teachings and whatnot, learning of cloning, black eradication, all the things that are going on, the melanin thievery and organ harvesting and the murder of our people being disguised as philanthropy, is all part of the process of coming to the realization that I now am really beginning to fall in love with death. That is such an amazing realization, having been raised in a world where everybody is in love, really, with their own enslavement without even realizing it. You know, and I feel so bad for the conversations I've been having with my mother, who is one of the only people in my family that I can truly share with. There are a few other extended family members you can talk a little bit about, but you really feel like you're imposing on people because they may not be at your level of awareness, and you don't want to cause any disruption to their way of seeing things. And that is something that all conscious people go through. The isolation that comes. But then speaking with my mother about death, knowing how much she loves me and how much I love her, and how it saddens her for me to begin to discuss death, although she's been with me through all of this for many years and has you know, been through every step of all the horrible things that I have endured. All the weird experiences, even when I lived over here, when I lived closer in the Piedmont Park area and was coming over here reading books to write my dissertation, I was meeting so many weird people that I had no idea then who they were. You know, and speaking of black eradication, if I would just be honest, I left Atlanta back then because I could not leave my apartment without somebody coming up to me and begging me for money. And it was such a pattern of that, and it became so annoying, and I hated it. And I left Atlanta at that point. I believe that's when I moved to Birmingham. That was my second time leaving Atlanta. And that was a very much healing experience for me. But now, all those years later, learning about cloning, and none of those people being around, because I believe if they were clones, along with the eradication of black people from projects and homeless people, my missing friend Charla, all of that makes a lot of sense. And now I'm having to consider, in the grand scheme of the universal divine order and plan, if there is such a thing, that people who are no longer here are in a better place. And I, having been living with this stigma of HIV for so many years, and all the horrible things just in coping on a daily basis, I am beginning to consider death. And so I apologize to my mother for that, but I know she understands. But the love that I have for her makes me not want to leave her behind. But we are eternal beings. All we're doing is leaving one existence for another, a far greater, higher spiritual ability existence. And I'll see her and everyone else again. And so, again, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've been just making it through every day. And I don't know how much longer I can do that. Knowing the goals, knowing the glory that awaits. You know, and I've been prolonging it all these years, not fully understanding what Kundalini Awakening is about. And it's obvious to me now that Kundalini Awakening is about death to this illusion and how that is a great thing. It is an invitation to the Divine Mother to come back home. It explains all the songs I've written about it. It explains my intense love for her. It explains my intense love for my mother and all the people who have assisted me along this process of getting to this level of consciousness awareness. I'm so thankful for that. I don't know what's going to become of this planet. You know, I've often said that I wanted to be around when the monstrous souls, or whatever the twinkling of an eye experience, so we can exact revenge and destroy this illusion, just like Shiva did, and then exact a little bit of revenge, even though it doesn't sound good to say that I want to do that, but I do, because I have lived in such pain, coming to the realization that it all is leading to the way I feel right now, that death is good. So I'm looking forward to returning home today. I'm going to call Mama Nebthet in after I clean my altar, as I advise you all to do. Dust those altars. Show respect for yourself and your ancestors. And then light a candle to her to guide me to a song. And then when I finally get a few lyrics in my head and start the music, that I can do a spectacular performance with no flaws, no errors, no pitch problems, no lapses in memory, and do a perfect presentation. And hopefully that can help in the Impromptu Nebthet Nebthet musical, which has detailed the entire HIV debacle and crisis, and explain my explosion in creativity and my love for the Command Pantheon and the Great Mother. So I hope you all are having a great day, and look positively among what I'm sharing. It's not a call for anyone to think like I do, but we are all expanding in consciousness awareness, and this just happens to be where I am now, and I am very pleased about that. Okay? Thank you so much. I am Dr. Damien Q. Laster. Kabir Amin Ra Anbu Osar Set Harakti, the conscious Dr. Rainbow Warrior, busting up bogus HIV worldwide, healing the sacral chakra. Metaphysics is the science of our ancestors. I love you all very much. I love me. Ah, Tum Ra. Have a good day. Goodbye.